Hello everybody, this is Guineith speaking here. This video today is going to be a bit of a different video to the ones that I've produced before. This one is, it's going to be regarding my previous incarnation as George Wilson. And I know that I've said, you know, in my USA Prepares broadcasts that I'm the reincarnation of George Wilson, who was a pirate surgeon and the lover of Bartholomew Roberts, the Pirate King, the teetotal Pirate King. And I have known, not always by name, but I've known that I've been the reincarnation of George Wilson for about the last 19 years, maybe 18, 19 or 20 years or so, somewhere around that ballpark. Now I think it would have to be pretty close to 19 years now, but for many years I only knew him as that surgeon who's living in the teetotal Pirate King's cabin with him. We didn't know names. When Archie was alive, we didn't know who our names were. So, but he was the teetotal Pirate King and I was his lover who was the surgeon. That's all we knew. We didn't have names, we didn't have any pirate history or anything like that. I only researched that afterwards and then was as amazed as anyone to find out that it was all true, what we'd seen. But today I want to go into some detail on something. Now, I was reading in a particular book by, I think it's Richard Sanders, If a Pirate I Must Be, which is a very good biography of Bartholomew Roberts, and I'll have to buy it. I was reading an excerpt of it online on Amazon, and it happened to mention George Wilson. It does go into a little bit of historical detail in this book apparently about the relationship with Bartholomew Roberts and George Wilson, and comes to the same conclusion that a lot of people have come to lately, which we saw before anybody else did, that the surgeon living with the Pirate King, Roberts, we now know him as, the teetotal Pirate King, was his lover, and they had a jolly good time together. They were in love. We were in love. We really were. We're still in love. I love you, Archie. It hurts every day that you're not here, Archie. Oh well. There we go. Get myself back together. Okay. Now, if I cry again today during this video, just, you know, bear with me, because what I've got to say is really sad. And when I saw it, I was quite sad, you know. I was reading in this book that Wilson died of a tropical, what's the words they use? Something like a novel distemper, which means an unknown disease. Now, that's not unusual. They're off the coast of Africa. There's a lot of really weird diseases in that part of the world even today. Okay. But it wasn't lining up with what I'd seen in my past life regression. And not only that, the nightmares that I've had since childhood. And, you know, still might very occasionally have one of these, you know. It's, they're not very pleasant at all. But oh well. There we go. I went into a meditative state. Now, remember, I work as a psychic, and I've learnt how to do this properly, okay? And I've got a lot of experience of doing past life regression type work, okay? So, I went into a meditative trance state the other night when I was sitting right here, where I'm sitting now, on my porch. But it was late, it was dark, and, you know, I'd finished feeding my animals and giving them their waters and all the rest of it, and the wood was chopped and it was all brought in. And I was in this trance state, and I was, you know, focusing on going back to see what happened in a type of remote viewing, okay? And I believe I saw what happened. So I may need to make actually a couple of videos to outline it, but we'll just see how we go. Okay, what happened? Oh my gosh, I saw myself as George Wilson lying on the deck in the gangway of this ship, and I was being, you know, transported back to England to stand before the King's Bench and, you know, plead for acquittal. That was what I was going to do, because I'd basically made a deal with Shalona Ogle, okay? And I must mention here, I don't like Shalona Ogle. And now I understand why. Oh boy. In my Guineith state, in my Guineith body, ethereal body, I was standing there watching my George Wilson self unconscious on the deck, suffering from this terrible disease. Now, remember, he was the surgeon. He got to treat everybody else's diseases, and he actually wasn't in the best health. He'd only just recovered just a few months before from a terrible attack of scurvy, which weakens the immune system. Okay. I saw my George Wilson self lying on the deck. I saw Shalona Ogle walking down the gangway and stopped momentarily and looked at George Wilson lying on the deck and unconscious, like probably just about comatose, just really, really sick, very, very sick, but not dead. And he stopped for a moment, looked down, and this really malicious look came across Ogle's face. It's just like hate. Of course he knew he was looking at. He went down there deliberately to check on me. And I saw him and I thought, oh, hang on, what's going on here? He kept walking. And I don't know, 5-10 minutes after that, maybe 15, or however long, short time after that, these men came up, and they had with them a sheet and they had a big set of chains, and they got my body, George Wilson's body, they wrapped it in the sheet with the chains around it, and, you know, made ready to just throw me overboard. Apparently Ogle had told them that I had died and that they needed to go down and bury me in the sea, at sea. And one of these men, one of these sailors who was doing this, he said, you know, he saw they all saw my leg moving. My leg moved. And the sailor, he said, look, the leg moved. He's not dead. And the other ones told him to shut up. And he didn't want to help anymore after that. I've got a hair on my nose, by the way. He didn't want to help anymore. That didn't matter, the rest of them continued on. I wasn't dead when they threw me overboard. They did the chains up, and they, you know, cast me over the side, and that was the end for me. I hit the water and I woke up, and that was, you know, it takes about 2 to 4 minutes for somebody to drown if they're drowning. That's just medical fact. And sinking at a rate of 10 feet per second, that would have meant I would have been at 1,200 feet within 2 minutes. The pressure on your body at that depth, 1,200 feet, it's just phenomenal. The suffocation, the sinking into blackness, not being able to see anything. This is what I was experiencing in my dream. And what happened after that, I realize I've only got a minute or two left, so I'll try and wind this up quite quickly. I was really quite angry at Ogle, and I understand now. When I see his picture, he should not have done what he did. That was just evil. And I think I might have to go into a second video because I've still got more to say. But I followed him to his cabin, and he wrote in the log that I had died of a distemper, meaning a novel distemper, an unknown tropical disease, basically. That's what he said. That's what he wrote into the log. That's what's recorded in the history books. That ain't necessarily what happened. Oh my gosh. If only people could see that they can lie all they want, the truth can remain hidden for many hundreds of years, but it will never remain hidden forever. Just after that, when I was in my soul state, I turned and I saw the soul of George Wilson stride in to the cabin. His body was obviously dead now. His spirit was free. He was surprised to see me there. I explained who I was, that I was him in the future. And I think that I will have to take this into another exciting episode. So I'll see you later.